Welcome everybody to my stat info on Final Fantasy II. Since I'm really bad at explaining things and it's kind of hard to really talk about stuff when you're getting into random battles and it's kind of boring to watch an entire video on this stuff, I've decided to do an extra video where I go into a little more detail about the statistics and battle mechanics of some of the Final Fantasy games. So first, here is the status screen. From here, we can see all the information your character has. I'm not going to go through detail with each one, how each one works. So first, let's start off with HP. HP is gained by taking more damage. The larger the difference between your current HP and max HP after a battle brings a larger chance of getting an increase. So if you don't keep your HP up all the time, don't keep it full. If there isn't much of a difference between your HP and your max HP, chances are you're not going to get an increase. So try to keep it low at the end of battle and then heal outside of battle. It's much more effective. Next is MP. Just like HP, MP increases the more you use it. So the more magic spells you use, the more your MP will increase. Now, unlike magic, unlike HP, if you get to 0, you're not gonna get like an automatic increase. I generally find if you have 0 HP, you're not gonna get one. So try to, before you end a battle, end it with at least 1 magic point and you're more likely to get an increase. Next is power. Power is your base damage, the natural strength that your character has, and it is increased by simply attacking. The more you attack, the higher that value will go. That value can only go to 99 max, but certain pieces of equipment can increase these first couple of stats to what's known as hexadecimal A9, which is actually 110. Sorry, 100, well, it's 109, but anyways. So just keep attacking it and that will increase. The next one is agility. How do you get agility? Just get attacked. What is agility? Well, agility basically determines who's going to go first in battle. So the higher your agility is, the more likely you're going to go first in battle. And generally the best person to do that for is your healer. So that way they can heal right off the bat. Next is vitality. Vitality increases also by getting hit. What vitality does is vitality determines your HP increase. So the higher that value is, the higher your HP gain will be when you get an HP boost. Next is intelligence. Intelligence determines your effectiveness of black magic. So how powerful it is and what's the chances of status effects actually affecting the enemy. How do you increase that? Just use black magic. The more black magic you use, the more effective it becomes. Soul, just like intelligence, but for white magic. The higher the soul is, the more effective your white magic is, meaning more healing, better chance of curing status effects, longer lasting buffs, stuff like that. So, just like black magic, to increase it, just keep using white magic. Next is defense. Defense is purely determined by your equipment. So basically your armor, head, and arm, as well as shield equipment. That value can be set to 0. Having it set to 0 when you're on the field is a great way to get HP increases. As you don't have any natural defense, your defense is purely dependent on your armor. So if you take that off, you get the crap beat out of you and your vitality and HP will increase pretty quickly. Next is attack. Attack is basically just what weapon you have, but I think there's a base damage. There's a base minimum damage because your fists count as a weapon, so I think there's a small base damage. And simply equipping different weapons will increase it by 1, 2, 3, whatever, getting a stronger attack. Next is hit percent. Hit percent basically is affected. It's affected naturally, but it's also affected. It grows naturally, but it's also affected by the equipment you use, and I think some armor can affect it as well. Now, how it works is the first number determines if it will work or not, and the second number, you subtract the first number from the first number of the person's evade, and then you subtract the second percent from the person's evade, and that's pretty much how the chance that it's going to hit. So if you subtract 1 from 1, you get 0, and then if you subtract 14 from 70, you get 56, meaning that there's a 56% chance that you'll hit the target. Now if say the hit was 2, then you're guaranteed to hit it, because the difference is just 1 level more. And that leads us into our next one, evade. Like I said before, I think it's determined by subtracting. Now if your evade is 2 and the person's hit is 1, then they're pretty much going to miss you. They won't be able to hit you. That's increased naturally, as well as I believe many of the armor is affected as well. Next one is magic power. Magic power is basically the overall magic power. Effectiveness of any spell. It's just like a base damage amount. Next one is your magic defense. This one increases naturally, or not naturally, sorry. This one I believe increases through naturally, but it increases through getting hit. Hit and evade increase through attacking and getting hit. Magic defense increases by getting hit by magic. The more magic you get hit by, the higher that value is up. I think there's a bug in the NES version where if you cast all, the only person that gets the stat increase is Furion, being the first character. So if you're going to get hit with individual people. And you might have to hit your own character because a lot of enemies generally cast all spells. Next is the weapon skills. Weapon skills is a table at the very bottom of the screen. It determines your proficiency in a weapon, preventing all characters just using whatever is the most powerful weapon, you know. You have to actually split your characters up and use... If your proficiency really sucks in a weapon, then it's not going to matter if it has a really good attack. So first one is Fist. This is just your barehanded fighting. If you're really cheap, this is a good one to use, but it levels up quickly, but it has really poor damage, but it's really cheap. Shields. Shields determine your evade and defense, stuff like that. But your proficiency also determines what are the chances you're going to get hit. The higher that number is, I think it lowers your opponent's hit multiplier. So if your opponent has a hit multiplier of 3 and your shield's at 2, they might only get... It increases the chance that they're only going to get a 1 hit as opposed to a 2 or a 3 hit, causing less damage for you. The next one is knives or daggers. Generally, there's not much difference. I think daggers add a bit to your agility, making you slightly quicker, as well as there's quite a few status. There's a few that have status effects, but I think it mostly increases your agility. Next is staves. Now, supposedly staves are supposed to increase your magic power. I don't know if that actually works, but the fact is, if your mage is going to be in the back row, that staff is going to end up missing a lot, because melee weapons they're pretty much hit percent drops significantly while in the back row. Next is spears. Spears are fairly strong and have a lot of elemental attacks. They're similar to swords, but I believe they're just slightly stronger. As well as they have a higher chance of getting hit multipliers, I believe. I'm not positive, but I think it also affects it. Swords. Generally, swords just have elemental, standard attacks, nothing special. Elemental status effects. It's just an all-around weapon. Good power. Next are axes. Axes are extremely strong and have a lot of status effects to them. But the damage they cause generally seems to vary significantly. Like it might be very powerful one moment and then it might do very little the next. So it's really quite random, I find. Final is bows. Bows pretty much allow you to attack from the back row. They're not very powerful, but they're good for your mages. They're a lot better than the staves. And they don't add to your magic power, but you have some elemental bows that can do some hefty damage from the back row. So the first number is your proficiency. This number determines a bunch of things, such as like your hit multiplier. So if, say you were proficient in swords at level 8, you can have a hit multiplier between 1 or 8, can randomly be generated, making your attack much stronger. This is why you don't want to use like lower level skill. So say you have a dagger, which is much more powerful than a sword you have. No, say better yet, an axe, which has much more power, but your character is more proficient in the sword. So say the axe is at 3 and your sword's at 8. Well, if you have an 8 multiplier with your sword, that greater attack power in the axe is not going to be as effective at 3 as a sword at proficiency level 8. So you want to keep your skill in that proficiency, like keep that in mind, and just stick with what you're learning. Next is the 2 numbers. They pretty much determine your progress. This number will increase varyingly. It might increase by like 5 in the beginning, I think. Then the higher that skill gets in that weapon, the slower it starts to slow down a bit. So if you have like a level 8 sword, proficiency level 8 sword, you'll find that the increase in your progress isn't increasing as much as it used to. So next is our relations between weapons. This is basically, or not weapons, but stats in general. It's basically how certain stats interact with each other. And the first one is your attack. Your attack and your hit rate take into account your natural power or strength, as well as your proficiency with that weapon. Like I said before, the higher your proficiency with the weapon, the more attack you'll do, as well the more hit multipliers you'll do, as well as which generally increases your attack power. So the next one is vitality, and I screwed up Furion's hair there. I guess I colored in his hair for him. Vitality affects your HP growth. The higher that number is, the more HP growth you'll get when you get an HP increase. So say if you have a low vitality and you get 8 hit points, you get like 8 hit points, but if you have a much higher vitality, you might get, say, 20. So your physical fighters will generally get, your front row people will generally get a much higher, more HP, as opposed to people who don't get hit as often. Next is magic power. 2 things affect magic power: int and soul. This way it allows you to divert the difference between white magic and black magic. So just rather than having one stat where that character is proficient in both white and black magic, they take into account individual stats as well. So if you have really strong intelligence, you can do a lot more damage than if someone does really low intelligence. Or you're going to heal a lot less if you have someone that has really low soul. So that's why the two affect each other differently, so you can't have an all-powerful mage. They kind of balance out. Now, the fact that you can't simply just keep increasing, there are penalties to using certain gaining certain stats and stuff like that. And the first one is power. The more times you attack, as much as there is an chance of increase into your power, there's also a chance your intelligence will decrease, making you so if you have a mage and you want them to be powerful, do not attack with them, as they'll drop their intelligence. Next one is vitality. Will drop if you have someone using more magic. So if you have a black mage who's constantly using black magic, they're not going to get a very high HP growth. Keep that in mind. Next is white mages. White mages will start to decrease in power. The more white magic you use, the weaker you become. Now this is not a 1-for-1 ratio. This can, sometimes you're not always going to lose one stat just because you gain one. As long as you kind of keep it balanced, you should be able to gain both without losing one. Next is battle items. First, just equip the spell. Any spells can be equipped, and you just select it in battle and use it. And they always use the most effective level. Usually the attack spells most of the spells are at level 8. There's some that only go to level 6. Not as effective. They only need to go to level 6 because they don't really go there are no effects beyond that. And the next is magic itself. So the first thing is the name of the spell, the damage and MP costs of the spell, and your progress in that spell. If you want to get rid of a spell, just select it, drag it down to the trash can, and it's gone for good. So if you want to learn it again, you have to start from scratch. Now, first off, the first number there represents your strength in that spell. It's taken into account in your magic power when calculating your magic power of how strong the spell is. So the higher that number is, the stronger the spell is, but it will also use more MP. So if you use a spell once, you will use MP, but your progress in that spell will actually increase. And usually increase about 2 or 3 depending on how you use it. I think sometimes if you use it effectively, it will increase more, whereas if you just use the same spell over and over again. So that's about it for my stat video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and it helps you understand a little more. And if there's any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Bye.